guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lynette, and in today's video I'm going to show you how I make my homemade chicken and noodle soup. So stay tuned and let's get cooking. Alright guys, so the first thing that we want to do is take our chicken out of the package. Once we do that, we're going to take a look on the inside of the chicken and make sure that there's no goodies in there, such as a heart, a liver, or a package. Sometimes the stores will put those things in a package for you, so you just want to take a peek in there. And once it's all clear, you're going to go ahead and put the chicken in the pot. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to fill our pot up with some water. You want to fill it about a little bit over halfway full, or you want to make sure that the chicken is covered with water. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add our ingredients. And I went ahead and chopped up the ingredients off camera. So here we're going to add some celery, carrots, and garlic. With the celery, it's about 4 stalks worth, and our carrots is about the same. It's about 4, maybe 5. And then we also have 3 cloves of garlic here. So we just go ahead and add that all to the pot. I'm also going to add these bay leaves. We're going to add 3 of them. And next we're going to add some onion powder to give it some flavor. And then we're also going to add some of this better than bouillon chicken. And I usually add about half a spoonful to a spoonful worth. Okay, so I went ahead and moved the pot onto the stove, and we're going to cook it on about an 8. That's going to be about a medium high, and you want to cook it for about an hour to an hour and a half so the chicken's fully cooked. You want to have it at a rolling boil, so just kind of watch it once it does start boiling. If it's going too crazy, you want to go ahead and turn it down if need be, but just keep it at a steady rolling boil. Okay, so your hour is up, and the next thing you want to do is take the chicken out of the pot onto a plate so it can cool. So carefully do this. I usually use some tongs and then also a spoon to kind of help lift it up, because sometimes if it's cooking for a while, it's going to start to fall off the bone. So you want to carefully do that. Make sure you can try to get as much juice out and carrots if anything floated on the inside of it. So go ahead and transfer it to your plate, and we're going to let that cool before we shred it. Okay, now moving on to the fun part. We are going to make our homemade noodles. And the first thing that we're going to start with is 2 cups of flour. And then we're going to add 2 teaspoons of salt. I just grade mine out of the container, so I just kind of eyeball it to what 2 teaspoons looks like. And now for the milk, you're going to add a 1/3 cup of milk, and you may need to add some more a little bit later on, depending on the consistency of the noodles. So just start out with 1/3 cup. And now for our eggs, we're going to add 1 whole egg. And then we're going to add 3 egg whites. So I usually get a bowl, and I will sift the egg white into the bowl, and then I'll usually save the egg whites for an omelet for breakfast the next day. And then we just add the 3 egg yolks to our mixture. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and stir everything up. You wanna try to mix it as well as you can with a spoon, and then we're gonna move into mixing it with our hands. While I was stirring up the mixture, I noticed that it needed a little bit of more milk, so I went ahead and added that, and then go ahead and give it a stir again. So now that you're mixing it with your hands, you can kind of get a better feel of the consistency of the noodles, and that'll be able to combine the ingredients better. Also, you want to cut the mixture in half, and that'll make it easier to work with when you're rolling it out and then cutting the noodles up. A helpful tip is to flour your hands before you start mixing the mixture. I forgot to do that step, and as you can see, my hands got covered with it. So that is a helpful hint. Use flour on your hands. Okay, next thing we want to do is spread some flour onto our countertop. Of course, you want to make sure that you have the countertop all cleaned off and make sure that it's dry. Spread a good amount of flour on there so the dough doesn't stick to it. And during this process, feel free to add flour to your hands, to the dough. We're also going to add it to the rolling pin as well because we don't want it to stick. And then we're just going to go ahead and roll out the dough. You want to get it pretty thin so that we can make the noodles. Okay, now that we have our dough rolled out, we're going to go ahead and roll it up. And while you're rolling the dough, you want to add flour if you need to because you don't want it to stick. So just keep adding the flour as necessary. And we're just going to repeat the same exact process with the second half of the dough. And you also want to keep in mind that the thinner you roll out the dough, the thinner the noodles are going to be. So if your family enjoys the thicker style noodles, then you can do it kind of like thicker, thinner if that's your preference. Now that we have the dough all rolled up, we're going to go ahead and use a knife to cut, and you want to make sure that you have a knife with these rigid edges. It makes it cutting it a lot easier. So go ahead and cut that, but make sure you don't cut the countertops. And you can also do this step on a cutting board as well. Just make sure that you flour the cutting board well so it doesn't stick. And now we're gonna undoodle the noodles. So you wanna kind of undoodle them, make sure you get any excess flour out of them, and then they're gonna be ready to toss into the pot. And you wanna make sure that the pot is back up to a boil so that the noodles can cook. And once you add a handful of the noodles to the pot, you're going to grab a spoon and give it a stir because you don't want the noodles to stick to the bottom or to each other. So after adding some, just grab that spoon and give it a little light stir around. And we're going to repeat the same exact process with the second half. Now that you have all the noodles added to the pot, you're going to let them cook for about 10 minutes to make sure that they're cooked through. so while the noodles are cooking, I'm going to come over here and start to piece off the chicken. Of course, you don't want to keep any of the skin or bones. You want to be sure to take all of that out, and you just want to keep the good pieces of meat. And you don't want the pieces to be too big, so at the end go ahead and cut them in half if you need to. Now that the pieces are all ready to go, we're going to go ahead and add the chicken to the pot. And go ahead and give it a good stir to combine all the ingredients together. And now we're going to add some fresh pepper to it, as much as you'd like. I usually just cover the top of it, but you don't want to add too much. And then you want to add some more salt to it. And you can kind of add whatever seasonings your family likes and to taste. So add what you need to, but don't add too much because you can't take away. So just add and then taste it, and if you need to add a little bit more, go ahead. I'm also going in the cabinet and I'm going to grab some garlic. And add a little bit more onion powder. Give it all a good stir. And I'll usually let the soup cook for a little bit longer, just kind of combine everything together. You could eat it immediately, but I usually let it sit for about 30 minutes or so. Now it's time to plate up the delicious soup. And what goes better with soup than some bread? I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I hope you learned how to successfully make some homemade chicken noodle soup. Please try out my recipe and let me know if it turned out great for you. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe. See you next time.